Hey, I'm Drew. I work with Fathom AI, a AI note-taking app that works with Zoom and Google Meet. And I run RevOps here, so I'm in charge of the HubSpot instance, all the go-to-market software. And I'm actually an ex-HubSpotter, which is what drew me to Koalify, because there are a lot of dedupe tools out there, and a lot of their UXs and UIs are really tough to use. But Koalify does everything inside of HubSpot, which I really liked. So I could work with the tools that I know really well and the interface that I work really well with, and also solve a mass deduping issue we had.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's of course why we have this conversation, because you're a fan of the tool and you had a mass duplication issue. Could you maybe describe the problem a bit more, like when you reached out? What were you facing?
Yeah, so like a lot of RevOps professionals, when I joined with my current company, we had lots of interesting data issues and data history from people pushing different things into the CRM. And early on, it seems that when we were bringing in user information for people who were using our platform, something got mapped wrong. I'm not sure quite what happened, but we had a lot of duplicate instances of the same customer profiles on the company level in HubSpot. I think it might be because like multiple people from the same domain can sign up. And that was creating different segmented teams, so we'd have a unique company each time that happened. It's mainly large universities. We had like a couple hundred like UCLAs, different large university accounts, because the students would all sign up under discrete instances. Yeah. We fixed that. We don't do that anymore, and we stopped doing it in the past, but the records still remained there. And it was a bit touchy because a lot of these records, like a lot of these institutions had active accounts, so I didn't want to accidentally merge the wrong companies. A lot of these, like some of them were free users, some of them were premium users, so we wanted to retain all that data, but also not have a couple hundred different company records for a large institution like that, because our sales reps were having a ton of trouble figuring out like, oh, which account am I looking at? Like, where's the information on what they have purchased with us? So Koalify immediately stood out to us as a great solution for that.
Awesome. Yeah, you mentioned the sales reps that were like running into issues. Were there any other problems that you were experiencing with all these company duplicates?
Yeah, absolutely. Success teams, when they were working with large MRR customers, would often have to filter through the couple hundred records to find the right one for the large MRR customer. Our data team and like email exports were tough. We weren't able to email companies the way we wanted to and let them know about changes to the tool. And also just like navigating the CRM in general was tough. If you filtered by something, you'd sometimes find, like, if you're alphabetical, you have all these different records together, and the data was getting a bit messed up sometimes in our data pass-through because they map to things like domain often.
Yep. Okay, that makes total sense. And then you needed to find a solution to tackle the duplicates effectively. Did you consider using like HubSpot native solutions?
We looked at them, and we do have Ops Hub. We have like most of HubSpot tools and most of HubSpot suite, but it was just too small scale. Like, we really needed to set a rule and run that rule through the system in order to fix all of the issues, because it really was an issue that stemmed from like a single kind of issue with our process. So they all had the same kind of commonality in line. And I'd used tools like InCycle in the past, so I knew there were tools out there where you could, once you figured out what went wrong, you could establish a set of data rules to merge those in bulk and not have to, as HubSpot makes you, manually go through one by one and approve which one will be merged into another. That just wasn't a feasible result for us.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned one of the alternatives out there, InCycle. Koalify is a newer solution. Why did you then decide to try a newer solution?
It's because of my familiarity with HubSpot and my love of using HubSpot's like UX and UI. It's very user friendly. I also, with Koalify, it's great that I can like see what's going to happen well ahead of time and check it against HubSpot lists. I can slice and dice that data however I want to analyze in HubSpot. Tools like InCycle that work in their own kind of silo, it's really tough to report on and analyze what a merge is going to look like prior to the merge happening. Additionally, InCycle is a bit tougher to use as like a new user who's not technical. I had to bring in like devs to help me build and test the rules in InCycle, because I didn't really have the confidence that I have with Koalify, where Koalify shows me exactly what's going to happen. I can look at the list, I can report on the list and segment on the list. So I was very confident when I initially implemented Koalify to make the large change.
Okay, sounds great. We're indeed a good fit for our clients that use mainly HubSpot and are very familiar with the solution. Then how does it actually look like in your portal? Because we can talk about usability and how it's embedded, but could you also show us how you set up Koalify?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So Koalify manifests in your HubSpot portal as a connected app. So if you go to like your settings icon into the connected apps screen, you can access Koalify directly. And the cool thing is all of the rules and things are available right here in HubSpot. You don't have to click off to an external web page or anything like that. So you can set your duplicate rules, fuzzy rules, primary rules, merge rules, and your subscription can be managed in here, which is also awesome. I don't have to go digging for a contract or whatever might have come through before about what subscription we're on. But we set up a duplicate rule together for companies. And that one is the company name and domain rule here. And it's nice because the rules tell you the number of duplicates and if they're on or not. But the goal here was to dedupe all of those companies we had pushed into our system earlier and not touch any companies that had an active subscription with us, because that was really the sensitive piece of this, was the duplicates. There were a lot of them. Some of them were active customers, and those sync with our product data. So we didn't want to mess up how that synced worked.
Yeah. So you were able to exclude some of these companies by including extra criteria in the duplicate rule, right?
Correct. We looked at the things that matched on our duplicates. So often the company name and the domain were the same, but we didn't want anyone who had a subscription with us or had an MRR with us. These are kind of redundant, but a good backup plan to have is MRR. So we were able to target just the duplicates that were not active customers, which was great.
Yeah. Okay, makes total sense. And then how did you go about actually merging them?
So the merging process was pretty easy once we made the rule and turned it on. Koalify made a bunch of lists for us, which was really great. We had, I guess they're called segments now in HubSpot. They've since changed the name. But the segments would display all the companies if they were identified as a duplicate or as a primary. And then by looking at that list and sorting it by like an ID, we were able to see all the duplicates and then the primary that the duplicates would be merged into. So I had a lot of confidence that I was merging the right things. And we went through a couple different iterations of these rules. Each time you can turn them on, let it run, and look at the segments that it generates so you understand that fully.
Yeah, cool. And then that's the review part. And the merging happens to workflows you mentioned earlier. Could you share the workflow as well that you used?
Yeah, that's the easiest part. So the workflow really isn't that much to look at, but we've already done the hard work at that point. You basically just create a workflow, company-based, that looks at that rule that you made. So this is the rule we were looking at in the other screen, company name plus domain. And you say, okay, if they're not the primary duplicate, merge them to the primary duplicate, and it's just one block like this. So I was astounded by how simple this part of the process was. It really is just making sure that your rules are right and that you've reviewed the records that are generated in the segments. And once you're happy with that, this part's very, very simple. And you can pick and choose which rules you're merging on, which I also love.
Yeah, cool. And how many records were you able to merge with the workflow and with this specific rule in place?
Yeah, it surprised me a bit. I think we had about over 13,000 records that we merged as a result of this. So we really had some messy data come through from our product. And it was great to get 13,000 records that are most likely tied to active subscriptions that we have or duplicates of active subscriptions. That's just colossal for anyone who's using a CRM like HubSpot.
Definitely. And in terms of time spent on the solution, how much time did you invest in setting this up and tackling?
Probably 3 hours. A lot of time researching solutions before I found Koalify. But as far as using Koalify, once we were ready to pull the trigger, I think it was about 3 hours of my time to set up and run this. Yeah, and it was all in HubSpot. And it also, the tools Koalify gave me allowed me to also look into my duplicate issue better. Because I could have the rules identify potential duplicates and primaries. And I fiddled around with the rules a lot, kind of looked at what came up in the segments. So it was very useful to have that.
Okay, awesome. Happy to hear. And then after the deduplication or these first runs were done, what was the impact that you experienced in the organization? Was it clear for the sales team that the records were now correct?
Yeah, it was amazing to no longer have all these constant RevOps requests where people were running into duplicate records or not able to find the correct record. I think, unfortunately, the sad state of affairs was that like our teams had resigned themselves to a messy CRM with a lot of different universities specifically was like the big one. But anytime you were working with an education company or a university, you'd go, oh crap, here are all these companies. So they like basically stopped overnight. overnight, and it allowed us to move forward with a great data project we have where we're building subscription objects that tie to these companies. We couldn't do that while we had duplicate companies, but now that Koalify is running and deduping the companies, we know that we have pretty much one company for each type of subscription, so we can go ahead with building custom subscription objects.
Yeah, awesome. Nice to hear that this is also enabling other projects and other data projects. Like, are there some key takeaways, summary you would like to make?
Yeah, I think Koalify is, if you are good with HubSpot, Koalify is absolutely the tool that you want to be working with, dealing with duplicates. And I know that most CRM, most RevOps owners are dealing with duplicates as an issue. It's certainly been an ever-present threat to my CRMs that I've worked with in my time in RevOps. If you like a tool that's like very cut and dry to use within HubSpot, you don't have to go looking in other places for things, and you have some great like segmentation tools as well that allow you to report on and dive deeper into your duplicate issues to help identify more duplicates. That's something that really set Koalify apart. Also, the pricing was awesome, so that was definitely a great factor when we were looking into Koalify versus competitors.